AKL Coalition of Democratic Forces SYPOL. The House of Representatives is the parliament of the Republic of Cyprus. Members and 3 observers representing the Armenian, Latin and Maronite minorities are elected by proportional representation every 5 years. 30% of seats are allocated to the Turkish Cypriot community, but these have been vacant since 1964. A general election must be held on the second Sunday of the month immediately preceding the month in which the term of office of the outgoing House expires. The outgoing House continues in office until the newly elected House assumes office. But during this time the outgoing House does not have the power to make any laws or to take any decision on any matter, except in urgent and exceptional unforeseen circumstances. The House may dissolve itself by its own decision before its term of office expires. When it so decides, it must also specify the date of the general elections, which must not be less than 30 or more than 40 days from the date of such decision. In the event of the House dissolving itself, it must also specify the date for the first meeting of the newly elected House, which must not be later than 15 days after the general elections. According to Article 62 of the Constitution, the number of representatives is 50. Out of this number, 35 are elected by the Greek Cypriot community and 15 by the Turkish Cypriot community. However, since 1964, Turkish Cypriot members have not attended the House, and no elections have been held among the Turkish Cypriot community in accordance with the Republic's constitution. Despite this anomaly, the House has kept vacant the seats allocated to the Turkish Cypriot community. These seats remain at the disposal of Turkish Cypriot deputies should they be elected according to the constitutional provisions. However, for the smooth running of the House of Representatives and of the committees in particular, the House decided in July 1985 by adopting Law 124 to increase the seats to 80 of these 56 of the Constitution. The decision was dictated by events because of the broadening of the activities of the House and its participation in many international parliamentary organizations. The number of 50 representatives was not enough for the unhindered functioning of the legislative body and particularly the functioning of the parliamentary committees. The current electoral law provides for a simple proportional representation system. The number of seats in each constituency is determined by law, with constituencies coinciding with administrative districts. Seat allocation for the Greek Cypriot community are as follows. The first parliamentary elections were held on 31 July 1960 and the elections for the communal chambers on 7 August 1960. They were conducted on the basis of the colonial legislation and in accordance with the majority electoral system. The Constitution stipulated that there should be 50 representatives, 35 Greek, elected by the Greek community, and 15 Turkish, elected by the Turkish community. The smooth functioning of the newly established House of Representatives was, however, impeded from the very beginning, due to the weaknesses of the Constitution. The Constitution of the Republic of Cyprus was a given one, worked out by a composite constitutional committee, though it safeguards the fundamental freedoms and rights of the citizens. At the same time, it comprises divisive elements that from the very outset acted as an impediment to the smooth course and development of the state. That happened for the Parliament, where the Constitution provided the requirement for separate majorities of the Greek and Turkish Cypriot representatives for any amendment of the electoral law, and the adoption of legislation pertaining to the municipalities and the imposition of duties or taxes. Thus, a small number of Turkish Cypriot representatives had the ability to block decisions pertaining to these matters. In 1961, the Turkish Cypriot representatives, making use of this right, voted against the bill for the extension of the taxation law and, subsequently, against the income tax bill, leaving the Republic without pertinent income tax legislation for 4 years. Following intercommunal violence, which occurred in December 1963, the 15 Turkish Cypriot representatives withdrew from the House and their seats remain vacant. To this day, all Turkish Cypriots holding state offices or posts in the civil service also withdrew. In its subsequent terms of office, the House of Representatives assumed the additional task of collaborating with the executive authority in order to enact special legislation for the equitable distribution of the burdens emanating from the Turkish invasion and occupation. as well as to take other legislative measures aiming at the island's economic recovery and the relief of the missing persons' families and those persons displaced or adversely affected. Ever since it is actively involved